Hello, everyone. Welcome to ITS 372. Today we're doing our lab. Okay, so the video is recording and the audio checks out. So just letting a few students into the session. And then I'm going to do the course participation in a second. Just give me a minute here. So hopefully everyone is in. So I can take the roll call, basically. All right, so just give me a minute here. Okay, and that should be it. Okay, I got everyone. All right, so we can begin then. So today, as I said on Monday, we're just going to focus on our lab. And in particular, we're just going to get started. We're going to take it easy today. I know, as I said, usually in this class, about half the students have taken courses with me, half haven't. So we're going to take it easy today just to make sure everyone is situated and clear on what they need to do. I do want to, I had some questions via email, so I just kind of want to stress a few things. So in particular, I had some questions about, oh, by the way, you should be, I need to share. All right, so a couple of things. The teaching assistant for this class is Mr. Burke. You can see Mr. Mitchell Burke. You can see the email in the announcement. So he's definitely going to help us out getting everyone set up. That's usually why I ask for his help with this, right? So getting everyone, figuring out VMs, figuring out VMware and all those little issues. So here I added, if you look, I'm gonna refresh this page just in case, but you can see here under the useful section, I added a few important details such as how to get VMware workstation, how to get the seed Ubuntu VM. Remember, the seed Ubuntu VM doesn't come as a VM ready to use, so you have to then how to follow this link, how to create the seed VM. We've also provided this email and another video on how to create the seed VM using VMware. So you can take a look at all of these, and hopefully that should answer most of your questions about getting set up. Okay, and if you're still having issues, email Mitch and copy me, and we can also see what we can do about getting you set up. All right, so that's an important thing. So I wanted to stress that. So today, as you can see also in the calendar, I already added the video for Monday. I usually try to do this as quickly as I can. Today, it's, we're just going to take it easy, really get into this, right? So we're going to do the intro to Linux lab, which is an exploration lab, and it should be pretty straightforward. So the idea with this is that we're going to use our VM. So you can see I've already started my virtual machine. All right, you can see that I'm currently sharing the VM. So I'm just using the Seed Labs VM today, but you'll see me switching. It doesn't really matter, except for certain labs which Ubuntu you use, okay? I'm going to ask Mitch to create another VM, an 1804 VM, Ubuntu, and hopefully, so be on the lookout for that. Once we have it, I will add the link and you can download it as well. Okay, so that's the plan. So I took the course participation. Now we can focus on going back to Brightspace and just looking at the lab for today. Okay, so the idea today is that we're going to look at content, and I know that I had some slides. We can come back to those slides later. There's no rush really. But today we're just going to, you know, we were talking on Monday about what do system administrators do, and I will certainly go back to those slides and see if there's anything that I need to point out, but you should always be reading these, right? Remember that. That's your assignment. You kind of read these. Okay, so now today we're going to focus on this lab. This is probably the easiest lab you'll do this whole semester. Just very easy to get everyone, you know, caught up, right? So it's an intro to sysadmin. It's lab 1, basically. So the way it works, this lab, you can actually do it today in class. You don't have to wait. It's not really that difficult. I will do a little bit of it with you, just kind of illustrate things, and then after that, you know, you can ask questions. But really, my goal is for it to be a hands-on lab. I just want you typing commands on the terminal, getting familiar with it. So basically, you should answer the questions, and again, I repeat, you should answer the questions and provide screenshots of your output. So anything that you do, you should provide some kind of a screenshot of the output. So the first thing is, you know, getting that Linux VM. You guys are working from home, so I would just have it on my desktop. That's usually what I do. Have it on the desktop of my computer where I have VMware Professional, and then, you know, I just, you know, start it up there. You know, the VMs save the files. Okay. So you're going to load it. Oh, okay. So there's a question. That's right. The CVM no, it's not an issue. It'll let you in without a password. However, when you're in the terminal and try to do commands, it's not going to let you sometimes if you don't have the sudo permission. If you don't know what sudo is, don't worry about it. That's one of the things that we'll learn in class this semester. But that's the whole point of the course, right? So to kind of get a feel for the VM. So it should be fine. And the other VMs that I'll post, some will have passwords, some won't, you know. Now, here's the thing. You will do a user account management lab. At that point, you can create an account for yourself. You can put in passwords as required. I mean, it's really up to you, right? It's your machine. You can administrate it however you want. That's really ultimately the goal. All right, so as you can see, I just added numbers. I usually just add these numbers so that when students have a question, they can say, oh, by the way, in number 23, can you please illustrate this and that? Okay, so the first thing you're going to do is you're going to start your VM, you know, with VMware, as I've done mine. You can, you know, the user is user and the password is tour. There's also a root user account, but that root is disabled by default, as we will learn later in another you know, lecture and lab. First things you should do, open the browser and check that you have internet access, right? That's the first thing that you want to do as you make sure your machine is configured correctly. You want to make sure that you can connect to the internet, because you will be downloading some programs. After that, you're going to want to open a terminal, and I'll demo some of this in a sec. I just want to read through it. So you're going to open a terminal, and then you should say, you know, what is the main interface for Linux? So answer that question. Sudo, you're going to play around with the sudo command and figure out what it's for. What is nano? Open that. What is apt-get or apt, right? So how does that work? What does it do? So that's really what I want you to do. What is ls? What is cd, right? You know, what is this command? What is the clear command? And then after that, it gets a little bit more difficult, you know, like figuring out setting date and time. So you're then going to play with these commands. And here I provided a little bit of an explanation of the parameters. and how it works. You're also going to then look at the file partitions, look at the number of how much utilized space you have, the name of the operating system, how to get a website from the internet, right? What is the cat command? What is uptime W? So a lot of these now get into harvesting little metrics about your operating system. Okay, so that's really the objective. Then I always get questions about this one, Dhcp. When I talk about this one, and you can see it says edit connections, I actually mean don't use the terminal for this one, for Dhcp, but instead use the GUI interface. You're gonna have to play around with the interface, kind of get a feel for where everything is, and then after that, find Dhcp. What is it, you know, and all of that. Look for the DNS files, right? So we'll talk about DNS later in the semester, but just for now, I want you to kind of familiarize with yourself with files. What is dig? So you're gonna look at that. ifconfig, right? You know, you're gonna, what is ifconfig? How to make a directory. So I strongly recommend that you create a directory, maybe call it 372 spring 2021, something like that. So it allows you to organize your information in your virtual machine. Scripting, right? So we'll be doing, next week, we'll be doing some scripting work, not today. Today I just want, as I said, kind of take it slow and just get everyone comfortable with the VM, and Linux in particular. Permissions, this is, you know, it's always extremely important to cover this. Access control, right, in Linux is crucial. And so we'll take a look at that later in the semester as well. But for now, I just want you to kind of visualize it. And then this part, okay, this part, bullets 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, and 30. This I will do next week, okay? So next Thursday, because there's no lecture on Monday, given that it's Martin Luther King Day. So it's kind of like a lab where I split it into two parts, but you're gonna submit, you know, a report for the first part and a report for the second part, okay? When I create the link, I will say, you know, exactly what I want, that I just want everything without the scripts. Right, so what I just said is skip, for now, questions 25 through 30, because we will do those next week, okay? And I will actually provide code. So what I usually do, in a perfect world, students would take 372 first and 350 later, all right? That's always been my goal. And we have a course called ITS 140, which now covers Python. So really, this is meant to be a review. And I usually I'll do the review of Python scripting on Thursday. And then at the end of that day, you will have one problem. I usually just assign one or two problems that you have to solve on your own. And it's basically something that's going to combine Python and Linux commands, right? So I'll show you guys how to do that, how to run Linux commands from Python, which is really the essence of what we want to do. This is the essence of what we want to do this semester, right? So if you remember, I've said several times that automation is important, right? You don't want to be the data entry person that gets replaced by the Python program. And so, you know, we're going to be doing the automation. So one of the things I will do is provide some background in Python. Also, I provided the link in the website that you can reference my 140 course in Python, and you know, maybe you can look up topics as you find them of interest. But I'll point that out again so if we go to this, and I don't know if you're seeing this, yeah. So if we go to 372. I think I added the link already. Nope, I didn't. All right. No, maybe I did. I refresh. Okay, so I haven't added the link for 372, but I'll add the link. You can always reference the 140 course. You could also just look it up here. This one. So you can look up topics of interest to you, but I'll provide, as I said, next Thursday, a review of that. But otherwise, today, though, all I want, and as I said, so everything that we do this semester is going to involve the Linux, the Linux theory of that particular topic, right? So whatever, let's say I'm covering access control. So I'm going to talk about Linux and what access control is in the Linux environment. Then we're going to do some exercises with the command line. And then I'm going to ask you, okay, now I want you to automate this or that. And so I'm going to, obviously, the easiest language to do this in is Python. There's two other languages, Bash and Perl, but I find those two other languages to be a little bit more challenging. However, there's always the student that wants to do things in Bash. I don't necessarily oppose it as long as you do it right. Okay, but otherwise, we'll just use Python, which is pretty easy to pick up. All right, so that's the idea, okay? Is that clear, guys, what you have to do for the assignment? Are there any questions?
I think it's pretty clear.
Okay, great.
So is this assignment going to be due on next Thursday or when?
Right, so I will create a link. So I'll do that in a second. I will create a link, and so it's always going to be the same sort of approach, right? So Thursday is lab. That means I usually assign it as I'm doing right now. I'm assigning the homework, and you have 1 week to complete it. So assignments will always be due in a week. So today is Wednesday, so it'll be due the Wednesday of next week by 10 p.m., okay? I always use the same consistent approach. I actually do the following. I always set the deadline for Wednesday at 10 p.m., but I actually leave it open for a couple more days. So it marks it late if you submit it after 10 p.m., but you can still submit. After the 2 days, it will close and you will not be able to submit anymore, okay?
And we're going over questions 25 to 30 though on Thursday.
That's right.
And Wednesday next
That's
week.
right.
Wednesday.
So basically, this is just very easy. I'll show you in a second. I'll demo a little bit, but it's very, very simple. Just typing commands, figuring out what they are, right? So that's how it's an exploration lab. Once we get into questions 25 through 30, that's scripting. That's something that I just saved for Thursday next week. Will we have a lecture next Tuesday? We meet, isn't today Wednesday? We meet Mondays and Wednesdays, right? So next Monday is Martin Luther King Day, so it's holiday. And then Wednesday, we will have class. Yes. Is that what you meant? Okay. Yeah, it's Martin Luther King Day, so no. No class. Any other questions? All right, so let's begin the demo then. So I'm just gonna do, Linux is a tool that I highly value. How many of you have never used? Okay, so there's a feature in here that I really like. Let's go to the participants, right? I'm in the participants. There's a feature in there somewhere that you can raise your hand. Okay, raise your hand. I'm sure you've used it in other classes. So raise your hand if you've used Linux before, if you feel really comfortable with Linux and you're like a Linux, you're pretty comfortable with it. Okay. All right. Now lower your hands, and now raise your hand if you've never used Linux or you've used it very little. Okay, all right. So some of you haven't used it that much, is what I'm gathering. And then I guess the other people that didn't raise their hand, you're somewhere in the middle, or a lot of people didn't raise their hand. Guys? Are you just figuring out how to raise your hands? Is that what it is? Okay, well, there's a good number that I think haven't used Linux, it seems. So that's fine. Now, I can see some of you that are raising your hands that you've used Linux before. But anyway, okay, so that's fine. I always, in the classroom, I would always do this. It's easier, obviously, in the classroom. But it just helps me to gauge, right? My intuition is that students haven't used Linux that much. So that's why I'm going to start, in a very basic way, okay? All right, so now you can lower your hands. Let's see, there's something in the chat. I'm sorry, I'm just reading the chat. Okay. All right, so I think to raise your hand, you have to go to click on participants, and then it's at the bottom of the list. All right. Yeah, go
On
ahead.
mine, it moved actually. It's under reactions.
It's under reactions. Okay, it's updated or something. Okay. All right, great. That's okay. So I think at this point, I have a clear picture. Half of you have used it, at least in my 350 class. Half of you, probably haven't used it. So that's fine. That's what this course is about. This course, that's why this can be a lot of topics course, right? Because it's really just practicing a lot of things in Linux and getting a good feel for it. I will start the week after next week with the theory. So we will start with the Unix way, right? The Unix way is actually like where you start with Unix, right? When you're starting from zero. So what is the Unix way? What is that design approach? And then from there, we're going to start building on all the topics. Okay, so now let's go ahead and switch over to the virtual machine, VMware. So you should now be seeing my VM, okay? So, just to give you an idea of how, Linux, how important Linux is, right? So first of all, you will use it in a lot of your courses, right? A lot of your upper division courses, not just with me, but with Professor Kim, Professor Tu, right? So you'll use Linux with a lot of those courses as well. Also in the cloud, right? Purdue has the Purdue Scholar is called. It's a cloud service that we have, and I believe we have it available for research also. So you guys, I'm sure at some point might use Google's, Google, I keep saying that, Purdue Scholar, and it's, Linux-based servers that you can use for lots of things like data science or, or your research, whatever work you'll be doing. Okay, so you have that in the cloud, and you have a lot of important frameworks that we're going to have to learn about in this course, right? That make Linux very important. We're going to talk about a lot of the services and kind of motivate. So we'll spend an entire semester just on Unix and Linux in particular. Okay, so now you should be seeing this environment, right? So if you have the Seed Labs VM, you can see I'm going to go ahead, click on this button in the search, and I'm just going to type terminal. A lot of what we're going to do in Linux will always be in the terminal itself, okay? So I know I know this, I know it, okay? I know this very clearly that when a student has used Windows for a very long time and then they switch to Linux, it's like confusing or just doesn't feel natural or intuitive, okay? It'll take time, but eventually you'll start to get the hang of it. So don't get too stressed about it. All right. Just my suggestion is, you know, do that, hit enter, do that, hit enter, right? That's all I want you to start doing really today to get comfortable with Unix, right? You know, another recommendation, just explore the GUI interface. Click on all the icons, click on all the buttons, get a feel for where everything is. You know, that would be one of the things. And then obviously start going into the commands. So a good place to start is just the text, the lab document that I provided. All right, just start there, and then after that, as you will see, a lot of those bullets actually, or some of those bullets, will become part of topics that we will discuss during the semester. Okay, so that's basically the idea. So one of the main recommendations is, once you open the terminal, always know where you are. Okay, always figure out. We'll talk at some point about the file system and the file system structure, right? So we'll get into that, and we'll kind of talk a little bit about how things are organized. But the first thing that you want to know is just know where you are. If you're one of those people that likes to have a cheat sheet, start creating a cheat sheet of commands, okay? Start creating a cheat sheet of commands. I've always actually meant to create like a laminated type of a cheat sheet and just have it available. I just, at some point, I'm sure, maybe this semester, I don't know, if I have time, I'll try to create a list, you know, just a laminated kind of thing. But you can do it by yourself, right? Just type it up, and it just gives you a little bit of commands to give you some comfort with Linux. Sometimes when I use when I want to install software with Linux, sometimes I need a version for this and another version for that and another, you know, of the same software. So what I do is, instead of installing and replacing that version and then breaking some of my other programs, what I usually do is I use a program called Anaconda, which is a versioning control system that's very efficient. Okay, so at later on, when we have a little bit more practice in Linux, I'll show you guys how to do that. What's important about that is that, you know, it's a great thing in Linux that you have, but also you know, I don't always remember all the commands, right? So I have a little notebook, and in the notebook I have, like, I wrote down the commands, and because I always forget, and so I can always go back there. So having a cheat sheet, either a notebook or just a page laminated or something like that, you know, could be useful to you. So certainly consider it, or electronic, a PDF, however you want to do it. Okay, so first thing, as I was saying, is figure out where you are. That's probably the best recommendation. So you can do, you know, what I do is I type PWD. That's how Linux works, right? So the terminal is really just kind of, it's like a link to Bash. Bash is a command interpreter, okay? And we'll talk about that also. But Bash is the command interpreter of Linux, and so that, you know, that we have available. And so we can, the program is in the bin folder, I believe. And so whenever we type something here, the command interpreter takes that command and is going to look for a script, some kind of a script. So everything actually is like a little script written in the background of some program, okay? And so, you know, here I type PWD. Basically, Bash is going to look for this script, run it, and then the script provides some output. And you can see that the output is there. What does that mean? It means that that's my current location in the file system. I am, so in Linux, when you want to get to the very top of the tree, which is called the root of the file system, you just type this symbol, the /. You can see that there. So I know I'm in /, okay, that's the tree. Then I'm in the home folder, and then within the home folder, I'm in seed. Seed is my home directory, right? Where I have, because everything in Linux has user accounts, and then I'm currently logged in automatically as seed. Therefore, I have a folder associated with that. Now, how do I know that I am in fact seed? There's a couple of ways. You can type ID, right? And again, run this command and you can see my UID, which is called my user ID, is 1000. So that's the ID, and I am seed. You can see that obviously you're logged in as seed, but your account name here is also emphasized as seed. You see that? And then there's a few additional things. You don't have to worry about them right now. Things associated with your account, but in particular right now you can see that. If you actually want to just see the name, you can say, who am I? And then it'll just say you're seed. You're logged in as seed. Okay? So that's useful sometimes. We'll see later, like when you're dealing with different accounts, you're going to see the root UID or a regular user, etc. Okay? Now, let's say that I don't want to see these commands anymore. I can just type clear. Okay. Sometimes you can type things like history, right? And it gives you a list of the commands that you have typed. You can see this. This actually keeps a lot of commands that I have typed even last semester, right? When I was teaching another course, I had all these, I typed all these commands. So the history just gives me that information. But, whenever I usually like to just have a clean screen, just, to work like this. Is this making sense, guys? Are there any questions so far?
I don't think so.
No, pretty easy, right? And I will say, I get that some of you, are probably experts in Linux, or some of you already know all this stuff. I'm not going to do a review every week, obviously, but today, think of it that way, just because you saw that some students did raise their hands that haven't really used Linux. So I need to get everyone caught up, okay? But, next week we'll do scripting. That could be also a little bit of a review for some of you. And then on, as I said, the week after Martin Luther King Day, we actually start with the Unix way, and so we start getting into all the topics. All right, so another thing that you probably want to do when you're in Linux, so we've done PWD, we know where we are. Now I want to know what's contained in this folder. So what I can do is I can just type ls, that's listing, and it's going to give me a listing of the folders in here. You can see, I have documents, I have downloads, I have my bin folder, I have the desktop, right? Usually the desktop is the one that you'll be looking for the most. Downloads, when you download your program, if you want to look into bin. Okay, so let's do ls-l, right? When I do ls with the flag -l, what that, and I'll explain what all of this means in another lecture later on, but at this point, I can just say that it shows basically the same information, all the files and folders contained in here, but with additional, you can see here all these little parameters. Using the flags is very useful for getting more information. So that's what I would say. It's, I usually just type different flags. You can play around with the flags. I have a tendency to use ls-l because this is the information that I usually need for what I'm doing. Oh, so somebody's asking me, should we try out all the flags for learning? Sure, yeah, definitely. Explore all the flags. One of the bullets in the handout is actually how to call the man pages. The man pages is the manual pages, right? So they allow you to look up information about the file system. Obviously that exists, Linux has existed for a while. So now with the web, you can always just look up things online, but the man pages, obviously it's a good reference as well for Linux, for the Linux system, okay? But yeah, I just happen, I like, for instance, between ls and ls-l, I always prefer this because this has, usually relevant information that I need to look at. But yeah, so this tells me where I am, right? I can go back to this one. So now, what are a couple of things? Let's just clear it so it's not messy. All right, so what are a couple of things that I might want to look at? Well, let's go into bin. How do you go into a folder? To go into a folder, you type cd, right? So this, kind of moves you into that directory, and then you put the name. So I want to go into bin, right? And now I'm in bin. I can check the path, pwd again. Oh, there we go, home seed bin. Now that I'm in here, I want to do ls, right? And you can see there's, this is my own program that I have in there, but nothing else. Okay, so nothing of interest. Now I want to go back. So I'm in this path. I want to go back one level to seed. The way that you do that is you type seed ... All right, and that takes you to the parent directory. So if I do that, now I do ls, now I'm back where I want it to be. And this, sometimes you'll hear me say things like, this is navigating or whatever. So navigating the file structure. And so you want to, my suggestion is practice those things. Watch this video again if, if something happens, but, repeat this. Repetition is actually not a bad thing here, okay? Now, another thing is that's important is you probably want to go to your desktop. Desktop is really the place that I would recommend where you keep your files. Now, another thing is you don't always have to type everything. Once you've typed a little bit of something, you can always hit the tab key and it'll autocomplete. So if you see, for me, I just hit the tab key and it auto-completed. So okay, so you can go in to the folder. So now I'm in desktop, right? I can do again to confirm pwd. Yes, I am in fact in desktop. So I'm going to hit clear. And now you can see these are my files in desktop, right? One of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to create a folder. The first thing, mk, so make directory. And I'm going to create a folder. I'm going to call it ITS 372 Spring 2021. And that's because this is where I'm going to, I want to keep things organized so that I'm not mixing up all the files, etc. And so by doing this now, I can just store my files in there, right? So I do ls-l, there's the folder now. And now I can always cd in there and start using the folder. All right, so these are some of the very basic commands that you have to do in this course, right? So, that's basically what today's lab is. As I said, it's a pretty straightforward lab. I wanted to give you this demo to kind of help you out. But now if we go back then to the handout, you can see that's what I'm asking you to do, right? So go in there, get to the terminal. What is nano? Try that out. Try to figure out what it is and then try to use it. What is sudo? Try to figure out a scenario on how you use it. Install some programs that are of interest to you. And then, some of these commands I've typed, figure out the date, how to change that, figure out, how much space is being used, right? Download a website, check the OS, and then start looking at some of the metrics of the system, like uptime, etc. Okay? So basically, you're going to do the commands from 1 all the way through 24. Okay, 24. And as I said, we're going to leave the scripting part for next week. Okay? I'll just give you a little sort of taste of it right now, but this is just a hello world script, as you can see here in number 25, just to kind of give you an intuition of what I mean by that. So let's go back then to our virtual machine, right? And what would I, what does that entail? It's actually much simpler than you might think. So, yeah. So I'm gonna do ls again. I always want to know where I am. Keep in
You're not
mind-
sharing your VM.
I'm not. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
Keep in mind one thing that you want to do. You should be seeing it now. One thing you want to do is always know where you are, because you don't want to do work, create a file, and then you don't remember where you left it. Right? That happens often. I've seen students, they're so overwhelmed with the Linux and everything, and they do something, and then the file is there, they just can't find it because they don't know where they were working. That's why I recommend just work on the desktop. Okay, you can confirm here. So now let's say I want to just run a little script, right? A Python script. So I'm going to do cd its. If I tab right now, it only completes until 3 because there's a ITS 350 and an ITS 372. So I add the 7. Now it should autocomplete because there's only one option for that. I go in there. I'm going to hit clear, right? And there's no files in the folder. But now I want to create a file. So you can use, VI, or you can create a lot of editors out there. I usually just use Nano. And I'm going to say hello world.py. Okay? And by doing that, I've now created a file called hello world with an extension .py, which stands for Python. So I hit enter. This opens this text editor. Now you don't have to use, you can use a more GUI friendly editor, gedit, for instance. That's one I would recommend that you can consider using, and that's perfectly fine too. But here I'm just using this to kind of show you, the console, basically. The thing, I'm trying to do everything in the console to kind of get you away from the GUI as much as I can this semester. That's really the goal. So now let's say I'm going to create a Python script. I'm going to add a comment. So this is hello world example. So now all I'm going to do I want to print out hello world, right? So that's usually what you do. So you type print hello world, right? This should be, it's a string literal, so it should be in double quotes. Okay. And then later on, we're going to learn ways in which we can actually run Linux commands. We're not going to do that today, obviously. But really, the key thing will be, we're going to have a program. Let's just call it module, module for now. Just making up a name. So it's going to work like this: module, and then we're going to provide in a list. We're going to provide the commands. So, for instance, the command we just learned today, ls. But we want the flag in there, so this has conveniently. I can just do that. ls-l. Obviously, this will be some library that I need to import, but once I do this, I will be able to run Linux. I'll be able to run Linux commands as you would type them exactly on the terminal, but we're going to be running them from the script. Okay. So, but I'm not, obviously, I don't want to get into that right now, so I'm just going to comment it out for now. All right, so all I want to do is I want to show you this basic pipeline, right? So I want to do hello world print, we got that going. So now to save, because we're using the console, and actually this is a lot easier than VI, but you can just do Control X, then you say yes, so you click on the letter Y, and then you hit enter. So you got to get used to that workflow, okay? And that's why you got to practice today. Practice, practice, practice until it starts to feel comfortable. Once I've done ls-l again, you can see the file now exists. Hello world.py is there. There's information about when it was created. There's information about the size of the file. There's This information is about who the user is that created the file, what group they belong to, and this is the permissions, okay? All these things we'll cover in another lecture that will be focused just on access control. For now, just be aware that all that has meaning. All right, the next step is I want to run this program. So to run it, we can use Python, right? So we have the Python program. So we would type Python, or we would type Perl, or we would type Bash. However, because I wrote this in Python, it has to run with Python. However, if I had written that script in Bash, then you would type something like that. You can always type sh as well, right? And if this was Perl, another scripting language, you would type that. But that script would have to be written in Perl. If time permits, at some point, I will show you an example of what a Perl script looks like. I happen to not like Perl very much. I prefer Python. I just think it's a lot easier to understand. But, there are, as I said, there are students that prefer other things. So certainly you can explore that on your own. All right, so now that I have the script, I want to run it. So it's pretty easy. I type Python, right? And then I type hello world. I can hit the tab to autocomplete. Now I'm going to hit enter to run it. And there you go. It ran. And you know it ran because it printed out that little result. Does that make sense, guys?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay. Great. So these are the things that I want you to practice, okay? So I want you to practice all these things. And as I said, use whatever editor you'd like. Okay, so if you notice in your handout, one of the things that you will have to take a look at, let me switch, I'm switching over to the handout. So if you look, I want you to figure out this part, right? So so the hello world script that I just wrote, that's really the last thing in the homework. I'm gonna ask you to make it executable. So what does that mean? What that means is that if you notice, for this to run initially, I had to type Python and then the script and run it. But you can actually change some parameters associated with a file in Linux and using the chmod command. Right? Later on, as I said, we will go into a lot of detail of what all of this means. For now, I just want you to, again, practice this. It's an exploration. But you basically need to make the script executable. So what that means is that, and you'll have to research a little bit about it, not too much, but a little bit about it. Okay, so what that means is that instead of typing that, you are now going to just run the executable program. So you'll type / and then hello world. Let me do, hold on. Okay, so / hello world. .py. Okay, so when you make something executable, it means that it'll run this way. However, for this to run, you will have to run that command that I just showed you in the handout. Plus, you may need to specify something in the file itself. So in the file itself, sometimes you have to specify which folder to use by default. So it's usually something like bin, Python, or something like that. I'm going to ask you to figure this out, okay? It's pretty much that, but just play with it a little bit, okay? And then make the program executable. I'm going to save it. Okay. And that's it. Also, notice when you make a program executable, the parameters here are going to change. So one of the things you should notice is look at what it looks like now, and then after you make the file executable, well, the color will change. So that will be one indication. But also take a look at this, okay? Take a look at these letters here and try to make some sense of what these letters mean, okay? So just, I know some of you already know, but as part of the lab, take it as either intro or review, and just try to figure out what these parameters actually mean, okay? All right. That's, so I think that's all that I need to tell you. So we covered this. We've covered this. We've covered that. Some of these you can just explore on your own. If config, obviously, you probably use ipconfig in Windows. Pretty much the same thing in Linux, so just take a look at that. Take a look at these, try to figure out the meaning of these. These are for getting parameters and metrics. Let's take a look at them. df and df-h, we can take a look at that. df-h, right? And it basically shows you information about the partitions in your system, right? So this should be your main partition there, your main device that is mounted in the system. Later on in the semester, we'll talk a little bit about mounting and unmounting a file system, as a device. So we'll explore that basically when we talk about the file system. Okay, so we'll talk a little bit about those details. Okay, another thing is if you just want to have like a Python terminal, you can also just type Python and hit enter. You can see this is currently using version 2.7. Once we look at installing Anaconda, and understanding a little bit about what do you call it, version control, we'll see that actually this is we should be using Python 3, and so that will help us, right? So that's where it becomes real. Should I be using Python 2.7? Should I be using 3.5 for my clients or my users that want to do their work, right? So you have to kind of manage that efficiently, and you use a package such as that one. But basically, we create different environments that we can work in. But in this case, it's using the default 2.7. What can we do here? This is like a terminal, but this is a Python terminal. So notice that you have these three little greater than symbols. So you can type things like m equal 3, and then you can say n equal m plus 1. So now n should be 4. So if I type n, it's 4. Right? So that's the Python interpreter. So it's a similar idea. So pretty much anything that you can type in a Python script, you could type here kind of to quickly prototype. To exit, you type exit, and you're out. Okay? And now you're back in Linux terminal, and this is, as I said, most of the semester, all of our work will be done here. Okay? Question?
Oh.
Nope. All right. Use any editor that you want. I really don't have any preference. Gedit is something I use sometimes. You can see that there. Gedit. It's a more GUI friendly, certainly, approach. So for instance, you can navigate also in the file system here. So there's no, you can do it. And these are the things that you'll figure out. You'll figure out your workflows, but you will see me just emphasize the terminal, right? To get you to practice that, get you to be more comfortable with it. All right, so if I go over to the desktop, I can get to my ITS 372. There's my hello world. Oops, sorry. There's my hello world. Right click on it, open with Gedit. You can see I can, work with it as well, save it. Certainly, this has more of the intuition of what from the Windows side. Okay, so it's perfectly fine to do that. It's not like you have to always use Nano. As I said, I just do it to kind of get you to practice more on the terminal. Okay, that's pretty much. Oh, Wireshark. You can see Wireshark is already installed on here. We will be using Wireshark throughout the whole semester for the reading assignments. So remember that I'm going to provide some sysadmin related reading assignments. Like for instance, there's one reading assignment about a printer being slow. So why was the printer slow in the network? And then it'll go into how they analyze all the packets, and it's basically meant to show you how to use Wireshark, what information you can get from it, and so on. There's another one, about Facebook being slow again, I think, or something like that. And so that's what it is, right? So you will be using, that's why the CVM is useful, because it's got a lot of software already installed, like Wireshark. You can use it. You can load the files, etc. You can also, remember, you can also always just open, you should be able to open Brightspace from Firefox within the VM. And then when you go to Brightspace, then you can download the files into the VM itself, okay? So that you can do your assignments. So explore all the functionalities, go to the settings down here, system settings, check out the browser. As I said, make sure you have internet access, play with this, right? The edit connections, go in there, play with these, look at edit, get a feel for them, IPv4 settings here, what is Dhcp, right? What if I clicked on this? What do I get? What is that manual that I'm going to get there? How do I enter an IP address, a network mask, a gateway? Keep in mind, once we start getting into a slightly more complex labs, you might need to start playing around with all these parameters and fields, okay? So just be aware of that. All right, so there's a question in the chat.
I have a question, Professor. For question number 3A, it says, what is the main interface of Linux? Do you want like a simple answer like command line, terminal? Like what?
Yeah, exactly. Just some of it is pretty straightforward. I mean, it's not.
Because I just don't want to be overanalyzing it and stuff.
Right.
And then
usually my recommendation, 2 to 3 sentences. I'm not looking, you don't have to write a huge paragraph, just make it easy for me to read the sentence, but answer it correctly as well.
Do you want full sentences, or can I just be like sudo, it makes you the super user? Like, do you want simple, or do you want a little more complex than that? Like,
I'm not checking your grammar, but I also need to read it. So how about that?
Understood. And then how many screenshots per report would you suggest?
That's a good question. So I need to see screenshots. So this is the way that you need to think about this. I need to see evidence that you did the work, right? And, so the advantage for me with a screenshot is I can quickly absorb what's in the screenshot because I know what I'm looking for. So it makes my life easier as far as grading. You see that? So you always want to say, when you submit a report, that I have enough information in there to convince the grader that I did the work. Does that make sense?
Yeah, completely.
Yeah. So that's really what you should say. So that's one way of answering. Another one is just put a screenshot for every question, right? Now, you don't have to have 3 screenshots for a single question. Try to, once you think, no, this screenshot answers the question, that's it. That would be enough. Anything else?
For number 13, the URL that you listed is not working, so I just put pnw.edu.
Oh yeah, just change it to something else. I really, all I want to show you is that command. So where is that? Let me, oh, I need to share this. Okay, so yeah, just pick another one, something that's of interest to you. Maybe, find a few websites that you find fascinating and download them, view them. If you notice, actually, these two commands kind of go together, because with wget, you download a file, let's say into your 372 folder. Then with the cat command, you can actually view it, right? That's why it follows it. So now I want to view the contents of that file on the terminal. Type cat and the name of the file. You want to modify it, nano, gedit, vi, whatever your preference is there. But yeah, the idea is just to practice all of these things. Any other questions? All right, no questions. Okay, so as far as content, that's all. Okay, let's see. There's another question. Yes, you have a question. Okay. So you do not have to do. I'll repeat again. For this assignment, you don't have to do 25. You have to do 25 and 26 because we did them today. But 27, the sysarg script, 28, view contents of a file, 29, directory listing, and 30, system information get. You don't have to do those. Remember, this is a longer lab because Monday is no class, so I'm not going to lecture. Therefore, I'm just going to do the scripting part on Thursday, okay?
So we just turn in a Word file that has them done up to number 26.
That's right. So let's break this assignment into 2 submissions, and I will create the links on Brightspace, and I will say on Brightspace complete from 1 through 26. Then I'll say for the next assignment complete through 27 through 30, and I will actually provide examples also of the scripting, right? So I'll do that as a review type of thing on Thursday. And then you will, I think, I usually just assign 1 or 2 problems where I like, I want scripts where you combine Linux commands that are invoked or called from the script itself. Because what I'm trying to show you is that you can automate pretty much a lot of the tasks that we will do this semester. So just to kind of motivate this, when we do user account management, right? I may create a list of 300 or 500 random names, and I'll just give it to you. I'll say 400 accounts, here you go. Create them. So you can create them manually, but you're gonna be working on that all weekend, right? And so, just going in one at a time. You don't wanna do that. So instead, what I'm looking for in that assignment is that you will create a script that in a couple of minutes will just create the accounts for you. Make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Let's see. There's okay. Oh, okay. So you guys are answering your own questions. Good. All right. What else? So that's basically the plan. As I said, I'm not, even I usually like to I'll give you a second chance on the first homework if you do it wrong, but just try to do a good job, okay? Because I get that you guys are trying to figure out what to submit and everything. But yeah, that's the plan. So For the rest of the time today, I really just, I'm not gonna, I'll be here to answer your questions. I'm not gonna provide any new content, so I'm just going to stop the recording. And then I just want you to start working on this. I'm gonna stop the recording